The Black Ships was the name given to Western vessels arriving in Japan in the 16th and 19th centuries. In 1543, Portuguese initiated the first contacts, establishing a trade route linking Goa to Nagasaki. The large carracks engaged in this trade had the hull painted black with pitch, and the term came to represent all Western vessels. In 1639, after suppressing a rebellion blamed on the Christian influence, the ruling Tokugawa shogunate retreated into an isolationist policy. The Sakoku. During this locked state, contact with Japan by Westerners was restricted to Dejima Island at Nagasaki. In 1844, William II of the Netherlands urged Japan to open, but was rejected. On July 8, 1853, the U.S. Navy steamed 4 warships into the bay at Edo and threatened to attack if Japan did not begin trade with the West. Their arrival marked the reopening of the country to political dialogue after more than 200 years of self-imposed isolation. Trade with Western nations would not come until the Treaty of Amity and Commerce more than 5 years later. In particular, Kurofune refers to Mississippi, Plymouth, Saratoga, and Susquehanna of the Perry Expedition for the opening of Japan, 1852 to 1854, that arrived on July 14, 1853 at Uraga Harbor in Kanagawa Prefecture, Japan under the command of United States Commodore Matthew Perry. Black refers to the black color of the older sailing vessels, and the black smoke from the coal-fired steam engines of the American ships. In this sense, the Kurofune became a symbol of the ending of isolation. First Kurofune ships, now de Trato. In 1543, Portuguese traders arrived in Japan, initiating the first contacts with the West. Soon they established a trade route linking the headquarters in Goa via Malacca to Nagasaki. Large carracks engaged in the flourishing non-bound trade, introducing modern inventions from the European traders, such as refined sugar, optics, and firearms. It was the firearms, arquebuses, which became a major innovation of the Sengoku period, a time of intense internal warfare when the matchlocks were replicated. Later, they engaged in triangular trade, exchanging silver from Japan with silk from China via Macau. Carracks of 1,200 to 1,600 tons, named now de Trato and Adar China by the Portuguese, engaged in this trade had the hull painted black with pitch, and the term came to apply for all Western vessels. The name was inscribed in the Nippo-Josho, the first Western Japanese dictionary compiled in 1603. In 1549, Spanish missionary Francis Xavier started a Jesuit mission in Japan. Christianity spread, mingled with the new trade, making 300,000 converts among peasants and some daimyo. In 1637, the Shimabara rebellion blamed on the Christian influence was suppressed. Portuguese traders and Jesuit missionaries faced progressively tighter restrictions, and were confined to the island of Dejima before being expelled in 1639. The Tokugawa shogunate retreated back into a policy of isolationism identified as Sakoku, as forbidding contact with most outside countries. Only a limited-scale trade and diplomatic relations with China, Korea, the Ryukyu Islands, and the Netherlands was maintained. The Sakoku policy remained in effect until 1853 with the arrival of Commodore Matthew Perry and the opening of Japan. Gunboat diplomacy. Commodore Perry's superior military force was the principal factor in negotiating a treaty allowing American trade with Japan, thus effectively ending the Sakoku period of more than 200 years in which trading with Japan had been permitted to the Dutch and Chinese exclusively. The sight of the 4 ships entering Edo Bay, roaring black smoke into the air and capable of moving under their own power, power, deeply frightened the Japanese. Perry ignored the requests arriving from the shore that he should move to Nagasaki, the official port for trade with the outside, and threatened in turn to take his ships directly to Edo, and burn the city to the ground if he was not allowed to land. It was eventually agreed upon that he should land nearby at Kurihama, whereupon he delivered his letter and left. The following year, at the convention of Kanagawa, Perry returned with a fleet of 8 of the fearsome black ships, to demonstrate the power of the United States Navy, and to lend weight to his announcement that he would not leave again until he had a treaty. In the interim following his previous visit, the Tokugawa shogunate had learned about the staggering destruction of the Chinese fleet by a handful of British warships in 1841 during the First Opium War, and about China's subsequent loss of Hong Kong to British sovereignty. The shogunate realized that, if they wished for the country to avoid a similar fate, they would need to make peace with the West. After roughly a month of negotiations, the shogun's officials presented Perry with the Treaty of Peace and Amity. Perry refused certain conditions of the treaty but agreed to defer the resolution to a later time, and finally establishing formal diplomatic relations between Japan and the United States. The 8 ships departed, leaving behind a consul at Shimoda to negotiate a more permanent agreement. The Harris Treaty was signed with the United States on July 29, 1858, and within 5 years of the signing of the Treaty of Peace and Amity, Japan had moved to sign treaties with other Western countries. The surprise and fear inspired by the first visit of the black ships are described in this famous Kyoka. This poem is a complex set of puns. Taihei means tranquil. Jokezan is the name of a costly brand of green tea containing large amounts of caffeine, and Shihai means 4 cups. So a literal translation of the poem is, there is an alternative translation, based on the pivot words. Taihei can refer to the Pacific Ocean. Jokezan also means steam-powered ships, and Shihai also means 4 vessels. The poem, therefore, has a hidden meaning. Black Ships is also the title of the first Japanese opera, composed by Kosaku Yamada, based on the story of Toyin no Kichi, a geisha caught up in the turmoil that swept Japan in the waning years of the Tokugawa shogunate, which premiered in 1940. In popular culture, a TV miniseries starring Richard Chamberlain entitled Shogun, based on a novel of the same name by James Clavell, described the fictional experiences of an English sea pilot named John Blackthorne, shipwrecked in Japan around 1600. Blackthorne makes frequent mention of wanting to attack the Black Ship with his own ship, the Erasmus. Another film concerning Perry's arrival in Japan was The Bushido Blade, starring Richard Boone as Commodore Perry. In the Capcom-made arcade action RPG beat-em-up hybrid video game Warzard, the character Kenji has his quest begin when flying technologically advanced black ships proceed to invade and decimate his home country of Zipang, and is sent on a mission to discover and annihilate the origins of the invaders of his nation. The Japanese anime series Italia World Series dedicated 2 episodes from its 4th season on the topic of the black ships. In the Creative Assembly computer game Total War, Shogun 2, a Portuguese sailing vessel called the Black Ship can be captured and is the single most powerful naval unit in the game. The Black Ships play an important part of the Japanese mini-series Yae no Sakura, about the life of Nijima Yae.